Hello and welcome to the podcast where I'm doing a series on the brightness of stars, a short series just introducing to you the people who are in my new book, which is coming out in May 2022. It's an exciting project. It's a book that I wrote originally nearly 10 years ago. And in that book, I wanted to share stories of adults who had experience of being in care as children. And at that time, we didn't really have groups, we didn't really have social media actually in the way that we do now. And so it was quite a different project to do back then. But really excitingly, Routledge are going to publish a third edition. And I have really changed the book. So part one still has the section that I wrote. Part two is a collection of the stories in the original book with reflections upon how we've moved and changed and grown since that time. And part three are new views and perspectives and ways of understanding that experience. So it's the same book, but it's quite a different book. And today I'm going to introduce to you somebody who is in that final section. So a new voice. And in fact, I think she might be our youngest contributor. Hello and welcome, Shaunna.
Hi.
So good to see you. And did you know that you were one of the youngest people?
No, I actually didn't until this moment. No, that's really exciting, and a privilege, really. Thank you for having me on the book.
It's so good to have you there. And one of the strengths of the book, I think, is that there are people from every decade in the book. And that's important because it shows us threads, I think, of things that haven't changed and things that perhaps have changed and different practices, and everyone has been in that experience with different policies, different legislation. So it's really interesting, and I really wanted your perspective in the book. So it was fantastic for me to ask you, and you wanted to take part. But tell me, why did you want to take part in this project? What was it about it that sort of pulled you in?
I think for me is we often see representation of care experienced people in the media, and it's often negative representation. And when you kind of like discuss the book to me, I just thought, what a beautiful and amazing sort of space for care experienced people to tell their stories in an authentic and true sort of way, which we don't often get to experience. And to be a part of that would be an absolute honour, to share kind of the stage with all these amazing and beautiful care experience people telling their stories. And I guess it's the first opportunity that I've ever had to tell my story, that wasn't pushed in any sort of way, that I was just able to write about whatever I wanted to write about in a true, authentic way. And that's a very unique experience that you don't usually come across as a care experience person.
Wow, that's just given me goosebumps. Because that, I guess I hadn't even really, when I put the book together the first time and then this time as well, I hadn't perhaps really appreciated um, how little opportunity there is to just tell it how you want to tell it. And also with some understanding that how you tell it again in 5 years might look different, and then 5 years ahead might look different. And I think it's really easy for audiences and readers and those working with young people in care and adults who've been in care to think that there is just that one way of seeing things. And what the book has really taught me is not only are there so many varieties of experience, which I already knew, but more importantly, that each person's understanding of their experience changes over time, depending on the different things that have happened in their life, those defining moments. And I guess you're right in the middle of a massive defining experience, which will undoubtedly shift and change you. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I guess this is something that kind of came out when I was writing the book. I guess it forced me into a situation to kind of reflect upon my life in a way that I was comfortable, yeah, to expose to, I guess, the wider public, which is something I've never even considered before. So by doing that, it was almost like a therapeutic process on where I'm at in life, how I feel about my previous life experiences, and yeah, what kind of the future sort of look like. And I think as a young woman, and a young woman who has care experience, the world can often be a very, very scary place. But if anything, like this book has taught me that my previous life experiences can empower and inspire others. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And so now I kind of view as my care experience, as much as I disagree with a lot of things in the system, I kind of view my care experience as kind of like a power where I can kind of take that and change the things that I don't like about the system. And hopefully, by me telling my story in this book, maybe it might inspire the younger generations to come to also take ownership about their experiences and use that to in, change the future, really. And that's all I can kind of hope for, really.
That's so beautiful to hear you say that. And and I guess I also want to say that you are one of the youngest people that I know who's doing a funded PhD.
Yeah.
Let's just say it, because wow. Um, what's your PhD on?
Yeah, so my PhD is on pathways to social connectedness and care experienced people. And what we are looking at is how social relationships may look like in care experienced people's life. So, kind of what the care system has may acted as a barrier at times, but also what's happened is like what really facilitates them lifelong relationships. And is that looking at how care experienced people may have relationships with other care experienced people, and in all, how can we promote positive social relationships with care experienced people in order to boost resilience, in order to boost well-being? And what we kind of see amongst the care experience community is often we don't have these lifelong positive relationships because we've been put into places outside systems of our control, and we're forced to move around and we lose them lifelong relationships, which is so important to our sense of identity, our sense of belonging. And not only that, to protect us in these periods where we may go through poor mental health, that we may need that extra little bit of support. So it's a really, really important and close to home sort of, yeah, PhD, and I'm really proud of it. And hopefully we can really help people in the future with what we find out.
It's my favorite subject. And really interestingly, I saw somebody write about how they had been, as a social worker, they had been in a lot of trouble for maintaining a relationship, just from
Yeah.
the other side of that. And so I think there's something really interesting about how systems really need to change their understanding about community, about connection, about relationships. And in a way, the brightness of stars is about being part of something. We all need to be part of something. So I love your research and I'm really, really excited about it. And listen, thank you so much for being part of the book, and thank you so much for taking part today.
No, I'm really, really excited, and I urge anybody, if you have care experience or not, especially those who don't have care experience, to go away and read this book and really take in experiences, because this is not something we expose about ourselves easily. And I just ask people to have the respect and understanding of why we're doing this. And the reason most of us are doing this is to raise awareness and to give a true representation to our community that is authentic and beautiful, really. So yeah, just go away and read it, really, and we're excited to hear what you think about it.
Oh, that's brilliant, Shaunna. You take care and I'll speak to you soon.
You too, bye.